are officially in a new series. Everybody say it together with me. On repeat. I almost kicked over the candy. That would have been dramatic. Anyways, so during the month of November, we are going to be taking a look at the stories from the life of Jesus and talk about how we can be repeating what he did in our lives every single day. And so what if learning to treat others the way that Jesus treated them? Wait, sorry, let me rephrase that. What if learning to treat others the way that Jesus did, so the way that Jesus treated the people that was in the Bible and the stories that we hear, was as simple as repeating a song that we love so many times that we could recognize it when the first few beats of a song. Does anybody have a song that they know so well that it could come on in the first few beats and you know what it is? All right, Joel, what is the song? Does anybody know what song it is? Brian? Man or Muffin? Okay. I think a lot of us would know that song. Joel, did you know what song Jude, did you know what song you would choose? Okay. That's pretty good. Anybody? Kayla? Oh, yes. So many of those songs from Hamilton. I thought we could test your guys' skills tonight. And I thought we could play Name That Tune. So, as we can see, music is really popular, right? Music is everywhere, from catchy commercial jingles to the songs that we know really well because of movies, to a new song from our favorite artist that we really love. We have songs that play in our heads constantly, right? Well, I'm sure all of us have that one song that gets stuck in our head all the time. I know Miss Bonnie gets the Oscar Mayer Wiener song stuck in her head all of the time. I know, right? It's a weird one. So whether it's at the grocery store or another store that you're walking through, whether it's in the car, at a friend's house, in school during math class, or just in the background while you're doing homework or you're studying, we're always surrounded by music, no matter what genre it is. But let me ask you this. Out of all of the times that we are hearing music, music is going in our ears, how many times are you guys actually listening? How often are you really paying attention to the song? Like all the time? Like every single time a song comes on, you cannot concentrate on what's going on around you. Really? Okay. Like you know what the lyrics are saying. Yeah? You know which instruments are playing. It's making you feel a certain way. I think that you guys don't pay attention to music as much as you think. Yeah, you shouldn't lie in church, guys. Well, okay, let's bring it back together. Shh. Okay. Shh. I still hear a couple voices. Thank you. So, as much as you guys claim, we hear music all of the time, but there's often at least a few times that we're not tuning in, right? I think it's probably about 50-50, and I think the reason why we think we're paying attention to the music all the time is because sometimes it's just in the background, and we don't really consciously are registering the fact that we're listening to music sometimes. And I think the same thing can really happen when it comes to our relationships and with the people around us. What I mean by this is we communicate with people all of the time. In class with your teachers and peers. What are you guys laughing at back there? So whether we are communicating with our parents or whether we're communicating with our teachers and peers, whether we're communicating with friends at the lunch table or with our parents in the car, we do not go by any day without talking to at least one person or at least one person talking to us, right? And the question is, out of all of the conversations we have, out of all of the people that we go around and we interact with day to day, how often do we really tune into those conversations? A lot. Now, I know there is a lot of you in here that are really good listeners, because I know that whenever I have conversations with you, I always feel very heard in your conversations. But I also think that sometimes we can get in the habit of not paying attention to what someone is saying to you. Think of it this way. Imagine a really good friend of yours created a playlist just for you, and they sent it to you over text or however you communicate with your friend, but you never even opened the link that they sent. It would feel pretty brutal for you to just disregard their thoughtfulness, because it took time and effort for them to think of all of the specific songs that they really wanted you to hear. They would probably start to wonder if something was going on between you guys. Listening to people is what really matters. So if you guys don't know, this is a personal story. If you guys don't know, I am married. This is my husband, Josh. There we go. So that is Josh. Everybody say, hi, Josh. You might see him at the end of youth group tonight because he's going to hang out with us for young adult groups. So I have been married to Josh for going on 4 years now next week, and together for 8 years. So almost together for a decade. Some of my parents in the room or my adult small group leaders, that is not a very long time comparatively. But it's a long time to be with a person in your guys' eyes. What are you? Why did you just laugh at me? What were you saying, Katie? Oh, yeah, kind of, maybe. I'm calling myself young. Well, anyways, a lot of the times what will happen is Josh works a lot later than me. So he'll come home late at night and he'll just sit down and he'll talk to me about the things that happened with this day. And he'll tell me a lot about frustrations or problems that he has with customers or some of his employees, because he owns a coffee or a pizza place. And what will happen is he'll be telling me about this really frustrating time. Why are you guys laughing over there? Shh. Keep it down. He'll tell me about this really frustrating moment, and what I'll end up doing is I'll jump in and I'll try to give him advice to what he's saying, right? Or maybe sometimes I like to tell him how he could have handled situations better. Like, maybe you shouldn't have said calm down to a customer, like common sense. And he will get so mad at me because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to be helpful, right? I'm trying to jump in, I'm listening to these stories, and I'm trying to make sure that I have a solution for him, that I'm trying to help him out with his job, with whatever's happening. I want to make sure that he is the best person he can be. But when he comes home after a really long day, you know what the one thing that he really wants from me is? Is for me to listen. He doesn't want advice. He doesn't want a solution. All he wants is for me as his wife, as his partner, to empathize with him, to be somebody that he could talk to and let out his frustrations with. It's impossible to truly help others without listening to them, right? What if we were sick and we went to a doctor and the doctor didn't actually listen to what we were saying? How would they know how to help us? More often than not, guys, we're like that doctor. We waste time and energy in the long run rather than just taking a few minutes to listen to people first. We end up just trying to jump in sometimes and give solutions. We're not listening to what they're saying. We're not taking into consideration what they need. So what would it look like to better respond to people by taking a beat and listening first? And so that's why tonight we are going to look at a story from the life of Jesus that really shows us what this could look like in our own lives. And so, as many of us know, guys, Jesus spent his entire life loving people. That was just who he was. He was a continual source of love and care for the people around him. And he would always be traveling around and he would see people who needed help everywhere he went, and he would reach out to help them. So there are countless stories that we could read in the Bible where Jesus did this, how Jesus helped people all of the time. But there's one story that's really helpful for us tonight that we're going to look at, and it's about a man named Bartimaeus. So this story that we're going to read might be familiar to you guys because we read probably like 2 or 3 months ago a scripture that was similar, but if you weren't here for that, totally fine, because we're going to look at it tonight. So let's go ahead and jump into our story about Bartimaeus. So let's pull up that scripture. All right. So this scripture says, then they reached Jericho, and as Jesus and his disciples left town, a large crowd followed him. A blind beggar named Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, was sitting beside the road. When Bartimaeus heard that Jesus of Nazareth was nearby, he began to shout, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. Be quiet, the people yelled at him. But he only shouted louder, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. When Jesus heard him, he stopped. Jesus stopped in the middle of this really large crowd, and he said, tell him to come here. So they called the blind man. They said, cheer up. Come on, he's calling you. And so Bartimaeus threw aside his coat, jumped up, and came to Jesus. So Jesus asks Bartimaeus, what do you want me to do for you? "My rabbi," Bartimaeus said, "I want to see." And Jesus said to him, "Go, for your faith has healed you." And instantly the man could see, and he followed Jesus down the road. Now, I think this story has so many amazing things in it, right? We could spend a ton of time talking and focusing about how Jesus healed Bartimaeus. We could talk about how God can heal us and is inviting us to share how we want God to help us. But I think there's an entirely other aspect and really good part of the story that I want to focus on tonight. So there's that really great part. But Jesus also in this story shows us something incredibly insightful about helping others. Did you notice what Jesus did once he heard Bartimaeus calling out to him? Does anybody remember what Jesus did? Yeah, Jude? He stopped. Yeah. Does anybody know what he did next? He listened. He did listen. He called him over, right? And then, so what you guys are right. He stops and then he also calls him over. But the most important thing from this story is that he asks Bartimaeus what he would like him to do. Guys, Jesus was the Son of God. Jesus was God in human form. Don't you think that Jesus would know what the situation was? Right? There was probably so much going on in that moment. There were so many other people in the crowd. It was loud. Jesus probably had places to go. So many other things that Jesus could have been doing. And yet the thing he did was took a moment to stop and listen to Bartimaeus. Jesus' movements are always very intentional. And so when Jesus stops to listen, that is a cue for us to pay attention. Jesus shows us that part of listening to somebody is asking really good questions that allow the other person that we're listening to tell us what help would look like for them and not us just assume. Jesus could have assumed that Bartimaeus was blind and that he needed help, and yet Jesus took the time to let him come to him and be able to have a conversation with him, to have that moment of connection. Jesus asked him about his need and showed every single person watching what it looks like to listen really well, right? And we could do the same. Jesus is asking us to press pause and to listen to those around us. And now I know that this could seem like a no-brainer, right? Of course, Megan, it's a no-brainer that we would listen to somebody when they're talking to us. But remember the music analogy that we talked about earlier. We can all be guilty of just going through the motions, but not being intentional with our actions, right? We can all be guilty of just hearing, but not really listening and paying attention and taking in what people are communicating to us. Or maybe we just assume what they need and we don't ask them about it. Maybe we're sitting on our phones sometimes like we do and we're scrolling through. I have a bad habit of just scrolling through my phone, and when somebody's talking to me, I'm not really paying attention to what they're saying. I'm paying attention to what's on my phone or when I'm watching TV. There's so many things that can distract us to what people are saying when they talk to us. And what Jesus was saying isn't exactly a brand new concept. I think what Jesus was really doing was living out what the book of Proverbs has been encouraging God's people to do for centuries. There's another scripture here that we're going to look at, and it's a short one. So it's Proverbs 18:13. It says, "Those who answer before they listen are foolish and disgraceful." Those are really powerful words, but I think it has something to do with here. Guys, listening is a well-recognized way to care for others in the Bible, to keep us from responding in hurtful ways. The scripture encourages us to listen and to ask questions before we take action, before maybe we respond to them, or before we even react to them. Guys, when we don't listen before jumping in, we could do things that aren't helpful or even that worsen a situation and might hurt somebody. Even when we have the best of intentions, sometimes we could just accidentally hurt those we want to help if we're not truly listening to what they need and if we're not asking them what they need. Guys, the book of Proverbs and the story of Bartimaeus really shows us how critical it is to listen actively, which opens us up to how they want to be cared for and not just how we think they need to be cared for. Learning to listen before speaking will take some practice, which I think is really great because Jesus shows us that listening is something that is truly worth repeating over and over and over again until it becomes something that's ingrained in the practices of our lives. Friends, after so many times of Josh getting really upset with me for not listening to him before I jumped in and tried to help him, it came to the point to where there is times to where he didn't even want to come home and talk to me and tell me about his day because he thought that I wouldn't actually listen to him. And that really sucks, being somebody's partner, not feeling like they can go to you about something, right? I finally learned to ask Josh what he needed from me in those moments when he came home to talk to me. And so now what I'll do, sometimes I forget because we're all human, but now what I try really hard to do is when he comes home and he wants to talk to me about something, I ask him first, do you want a solution or do you want comfort in this moment? Do you want me to help you solve the situation, the problem, or do you just need a listening ear? And this helps me be able to listen to his needs rather than just assuming that's what he needs. And we're both able to feel heard in our conversations when we talk with each other. And I think that's really great advice that we could take into any situation when someone is talking to us. When we ask questions and let others speak for themselves, as Jesus did, we open ourselves to understand them more deeply. Who are they? What are they all about? What makes them feel connected to God? And so here are a couple of things that we can do this week to help in that situation when it comes to actively listening. So the first thing we could do when it comes to actively listening is to listen to understand. And now remember, listening to understand isn't about finding solutions immediately. We can learn by my bad mistakes, right? Or seeking the opportunity to share our wisdom. Guys, it's about hearing others and letting them share their stories. So this may mean that there's a bit of awkward silence after they stop talking or sharing, and that's okay. Awkward silences are a great time for us to try and process what's been shared. After someone shares something, practice just waiting a few moments before you respond. The second thing that we can do is we could repeat what they've shared. This is a really important one. And you could say something like, okay, so it sounds like you are having a hard time with blank. Or you could say it in the way of, correct me if I misunderstood, but what I hear you saying is, and then fill in the blank. Guys, before giving your thoughts, just repeat back what they're saying. I think in addition to making sure that you understand everything, it can also help you internalize and empathize and put yourself into their shoes and what they're going through to make sure you're truly hearing what they're saying, you're not misinterpreting it. And then the third one we could do is we could ask how we can help. Just like Jesus did. This last step is crucial if we want to love others the way that Jesus did. It's as simple as asking, hey, how can I be praying for you in this situation? Is there anything that I can do to help you as you're walking through this? Guys, the last part of listening to others is to ask what would it look like for you to come alongside them, whether that's in prayer or just being a listening ear or just being with them while they need help and somebody to help find solutions with. It's about giving them the space to verbalize their feelings, their needs, and their hopes, but then joining them in the places where they actually do need that help. When we listen to understand, when we repeat what they say back to them, and when we ask how we can help, we show people just how much we care for them. And it can take some work. Take it from my example, like I'm married and I've been with him for 8 years and I'm still learning how to be able to better communicate and love him in a better way, right? But it is so worth it because Jesus really truly shows us that listening is worth repeating and working on.